Earth, a unique planet, restless and dynamic. Continents shift and clash. Volcanoes erupt. Glaciers grow and recede. Titanic forces that are constantly at work, leaving a trail of geological mysteries behind. One of these mysteries is centered here, in the Grand Canyon in Arizona. Close to 1 billion tons of rock have been carved out of the ground. The canyon left behind could hold all the river water on Earth and still be less than half full. For more than a century, scientists have debated how and when this vast chasm was created.
It seems like we should understand perfectly how the Grand Canyon formed. The problem is we've lost a tremendous amount of evidence. It's like a murder mystery where most of the evidence is lost. And so the best we can do is piece together the evidence that we have.
There's something about the Grand Canyon that's always felt off. Scientists have been digging into its depths for years, but some discoveries just don't add up. We're talking about strange creatures that shouldn't even exist, and whispers of ancient civilizations that history books never mention. The deeper they go, the weirder it gets. And trust me, the latest findings have left even the experts completely baffled. So, let's get into it. If you think the Arizona desert is just about cacti and dry heat, think again. Enter the Mogollon Monster, a creature so elusive and odd that it could literally give Bigfoot a run for his money. This legendary beast calls the Mogollon Rim region of Arizona home, and it's not just a simple stroll in the park if you meet this fella. The Mogollon Monster is a bipedal giant, towering over 7 feet tall and covered in long black or reddish-brown hair. Not your average hiker, right? And it doesn't stop there. Imagine laying eyes on something with wild, possibly red eyes. And here comes the kicker. A stench so fierce, it's like a mix of dead fish, skunk body odor, decaying peat moss, and just for that extra touch, the musk of a snapping turtle. Who needs cologne when you've got that aroma combo? The tale dates back to 1903, courtesy of Stevens near the Grand Canyon. Stevens stumbled upon this creature with long white hair and a beard down to its knees. Creepy much? It gets better. He saw it guzzling cougar blood. Yes, cougar blood. Wielding a club and throwing around a screech that could chill your bones. Fast forward to the 1940s, and along comes Don Davis, a cryptozoologist who got the fright of his life during a Boy Scout trip near Payson, Arizona. He described the Mogollon Monster as a hulking figure with deep-set eyes and a somewhat bald face, framed by hair, huge arms, and a chest that screamed gym enthusiast. Then there's Marjorie Grimes of White River, who, between 1982 and 2004, spotted the giant several times. Imagine slamming your brakes because you saw a massive, black figure striding through the trees. And just when you thought Arizona had enough mysteries, there's the story of the Grand Canyon UFO. In 1909, the Arizona Gazette stirred up quite the hubbub with a headline that would make any conspiracy theorist's day. They published an article claiming that a fellow named G.E. Kincaid, supposedly working with the Smithsonian Institution, stumbled upon an underground city deep within the Grand Canyon. Kincaid described finding a veritable treasure trove that would make Indiana Jones green with envy. Rooms upon rooms filled with artifacts that looked like they took a wrong turn on the way from ancient Egypt or Tibet. We're talking copper tools, weapons, and religious idols that seem to have more in common with Eastern deities than with anything Native American. And the mummies. Wrapped in fine linens and decked out in jewelry, they would have been a curator's dream. For days, Kincaid played the role of a desert-bound archaeologist, mapping this extensive network of caves and cataloging every last idol and inscripted stone. Convinced he'd hit the historical jackpot, he dashed back to civilization to spill the beans to the Smithsonian, which supposedly sent Professor S.A. Jordan and a crack team of archaeologists to dig a little deeper. But here's where things get murky. Skeptics were quick to point out holes in the story big enough to drive a stagecoach through. For starters, no one could find any record of this Kincaid character or his big Smithsonian-backed expedition. The descriptions of the artifacts and the architectural marvels inside the cave didn't quite match up with the archaeological know-how of the day, either. The critics waved it off as just another sensational story, the kind cooked up to sell newspapers. And the Smithsonian? They've been batting away questions about this supposed expedition ever since, insisting that there's no evidence of any such artifacts in their collection. Speaking of unexpected finds, let's take a leap from the mystical to the prehistoric. Back in 2007, Dr. Luis M. Chiappe and his crew from the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles County hit the dusty trails of southeastern Utah's Badlands. What they didn't expect to find was a dinosaur skeleton that would make anyone's jaw drop, sporting a rare green hue on its bones. The excavation site was no walk in the park. Imagine battling extreme heat while being constantly attacked by swarms of gnats. These weren't just any gnats, but the kind that inspired the team to name their green bone discovery Natalie. Over 10 long summers, they braved not just the bugs, but rattlesnakes, and even the occasional mountain lion, painstakingly piecing together the giant jigsaw puzzle that Natalie turned out to be. Natalie isn't just any dinosaur. She's a composite of about 350 fossils from 6 different dinosaurs. These weren't your garden variety critters, but massive, long-necked sauropods that stretched over 75 feet long and weighed as much as a recreational vehicle. That's right, this herbivore was a behemoth. The green tinge of Natalie's bones? That's thanks to celadonite, a mineral that snuck in during the fossilization process, which took place between 50 to 80 million years ago due to some timely volcanic activity. This unique coloration makes Natalie a one-of-a-kind spectacle in the dinosaur display world. After the bones were unearthed, the real meticulous work began back at NHMLAC's Dino Lab. The team, alongside some incredibly talented artists, took great care in removing the surrounding rock and ensuring the bones were stable enough for both study and display. Their hard work paid off beautifully in the reconstructed skeleton that now resides in the museum for all to see. Meanwhile, over in Malataverne, southern France, another kind of history was peeking out from the dark corners of the Mandrin Cave. In September 2018, a team of archaeologists, led by the ever-persistent Ludovic Slimak from the National Center for Scientific Research, CNRS, uncovered Neanderthal remains, including a crushed mandible, teeth, and finger bones of an individual they affectionately named Thorin, who had been hanging out in the cave for a cool 100,000 years. Now, the Mandrin Cave isn't just any old cave. It's been a hotbed for archaeological digs due to its rich layers and signs of long-ago hominin life. Using advanced techniques, Slimak's crew took painstaking care to date and preserve what they found. What they discovered about Thorin was fascinating. His lineage split from mainstream Neanderthals around 105,000 years ago, suggesting his group was isolated long enough to basically become their own branch on the family tree. This prolonged isolation didn't just make them unique, it likely led to inbreeding and a stark lack of new genetic material. Rather than the usual suspects like climate change or human competition, these factors may have nudged Thorin's people toward extinction. It's a juicy bit of data that challenges our old theories and gives us plenty to chew on regarding how Neanderthals lived and died out. Digging through the site was no walk in the park. Over the years, the team meticulously removed layers of sediment, documenting every artifact and bone fragment. The site's complexity meant that paleoanthropologists had to work alongside geneticists and geologists to piece together a vivid picture of Neanderthal life. Their hard work paid off, culminating in a detailed analysis published in Cell Genomics. This study doesn't just add a chapter to the Neanderthal story. It opens up a whole new book on their social structures and decline. But the story of digging up the past doesn't end in France. In the 1930s, a couple of adventurers were cruising down the Colorado River when they stumbled upon a cave practically overflowing with bat guano. Now, if you're wrinkling your nose in disgust, hold on a second. Back then, this stuff was the gold of oddities, treasured for its uses in everything from fertilizer to dynamite, and even, believe it or not, makeup. Fast forward to 1957, and the U.S. Guano Corporation catches wind of this stinky jackpot. They snapped up the property, dreaming of the riches that 100,000 tons of guano, valued between $12 to $15 million, would bring. They didn't just go big to get their hands on it. They went extravagant. They built a small airstrip right on a sandbar in the river to fly in all their gear, and concocted an aerial tramway that stretched a jaw-dropping 7,500 feet across the Grand Canyon to Guano Point on the South Rim. This high-flying cable car could haul 2,500 pounds of guano at a go, doubling as a commuter ride for the miners. But oh, the best laid plans. Constructing this cableway took a grueling 14 months, and they hit a snag right out of the gate. While tensioning the main cable, a clutch lever snapped, sending a cool 9,850 feet of cable plummeting into the canyon depths. They ordered a new one, got it strung up, and finally got down to mining. Yet, just months in, the pull cable wore out and needed replacing. By then, the company had sunk $3.5 million into this operation. Here's where it gets a bit facepalm worthy. That mountain of guano they were expecting turned out to be more of a molehill. The actual haul? A mere 1,000 tons of usable guano, not the 100,000 tons they dreamed of, most of the cave being stuffed with worthless limestone rubble. Another tale tucked within the Grand Canyon takes us even further back in time. In 1936, a group of daring explorers descended into the depths of the Grand Canyon and stumbled upon Rampart Cave. This wasn't just any old cave. It was a treasure trove of ancient remains, shedding light on creatures that roamed North America during the Pleistocene epoch. Nestled near the western end of the Grand Canyon, Rampart Cave turned out to be the old stomping grounds of the Shasta ground sloth, Nothrotheriops shastensis. Imagine finding piles of ancient dung, bones, and other remnants just lying around. Talk about a gold mine for paleontologists. These findings suggested that this cave was a cozy hangout, or perhaps a refuge for these hefty herbivores thousands of years ago. Diving into this dung, figuratively of course, researchers got the scoop on the sloth's diet. These giant leaf munchers weren't picky, feasting on a buffet of Joshua trees, yuccas, and cacti. This diet diary helped paint a picture of a Grand Canyon that was once a lush, plant-packed paradise, quite different from the arid landscapes we see today. But wait, there's more. Rampart Cave didn't just house sloth secrets. It also held fossils of other ancient residents like the extinct Harrington's mountain goat, bighorn sheep, a vanished horse species, and even a large extinct cat. These discoveries showcased a once bustling hotspot of biodiversity. Thanks to the cave's exceptional preservation conditions, materials that usually disintegrate over millennia, like hair and skin, were kept almost as good as new. This offered scientists a rare peek into the physical traits and health of the Shasta ground sloth, providing insights not just into their appearance, but also their lifestyle. Now, while the Grand Canyon tells tales of natural history, it also whispers secrets of ancient human connections. Though direct evidence in this particular cave is sparse, similar sites tell us that early humans might have mingled with these giant sloths. Not too far from these ancient animal archives lies the Tusayan ruins, also known as Tusayan Pueblo, nestled in the heart of Grand Canyon National Park, Arizona. These are the real McCoy of ancient setups, giving us a peek into the lives of folks who called this place home around 800 years ago. The ruins themselves are pretty neat. A small, U-shaped pueblo that was the whole world for about 30 people from roughly 1185. Imagine living, storing your supplies, and even performing ceremonies all in this cozy setup. It was only for about 20 years, but that's longer than most of us stick with a smartphone. Now cut to 1930. Some eager archaeologists from the Gila Pueblo Archaeological Foundation got the thumbs up from the National Park Service to dig into these ruins. Their deal? Dig up the dirt and build a museum right there to share the findings. And let me tell you, they struck gold. Not literally though. They unearthed pottery, tools, and even leftovers that give us the scoop on the daily grind of those ancient folks. Their community layout with a central plaza totally spells out their social vibe and cultural mojo. Thanks to some timely TLC in 1948 and again in 1965, Tusayan ruins got some much-needed preservation love, keeping it in tip-top shape for curious souls like us. The museum itself is a throwback. It was designed in 1928 by Herbert Meyer, a National Park Service architect, and got a boost in 1934 thanks to Laura Spelman Rockefeller. They went for a Hopi vibe in the design, packing it with artifacts that tell tales of the Puebloan lifestyle. But wait, there's more. Just when you thought the Grand Canyon area couldn't get any cooler, let me draw your attention to a little less ancient, but no less intriguing place: the Grand Canyon Caverns. Back in 1927, Walter Peck, a local woodcutter from Peach Springs, Arizona, was on his merry way to a poker game when he nearly tripped into what could have been the worst bluff of his life: a gaping hole in the ground. But instead of cursing his luck, Peck saw dollar signs. He grabbed a few pals the next day, and they lowered a brave cowboy into the abyss. The light from the cowboy's lantern hit the walls, and what do you know? They sparkled like a prospector's dream. Thinking it was gold, Peck didn't waste any time. He bought 800 acres around the hole, only to find out the walls were just showing off their iron oxide. Not quite the payday he imagined. But Peck wasn't one to fold easily. He turned his supposed misfortune into a tourist attraction. With a DIY elevator, he started dropping visitors 150 feet down for 25 cents a pop. By 1935, he was in cahoots with the Civilian Conservation Corps and the Works Progress Administration, carving out easier access so more folks could ogle at what he'd found. And what a place it is. Aside from fool's gold, the Grand Canyon Caverns are home to the bones of a Paramylodon harlani, a giant ground sloth that meandered around during the Ice Age about 11,000 years ago. The caverns even had their 15 minutes of fame during the Cuban Missile Crisis, serving as a designated fallout shelter stocked with supplies for 2,000 people. These days, the caverns are a sightseer's paradise. With spots like the Chapel of the Ages and the Snowball Palace, it's not just a hole in the ground, it's a whole lot of history. And tours just skim the surface, covering 3/4 of a mile in about 45 minutes. Not far from there, in 2012, a team of scientists in Kootenay National Park, British Columbia, unearthed something that really takes you back. This squad, led by Jean-Bernard Caron from the Royal Ontario Museum, that's ROM for short, alongside Robert R. Gaines and other geology gurus, discovered a new fossil site that was about to put a dazzling spin on our understanding of ancient marine life. Located a cool 42 kilometers southeast of the well-known Burgess Shale, this new site was like stumbling into an underwater time capsule from 500 million years ago. During what was supposed to be routine fieldwork, the team's day took a turn for the historic. They found themselves on a slope that was just brimming with well-preserved fossils. You can bet there was plenty of whooping and hollering as they realized they'd uncovered something monumental. Fast forward to 2013, and over a mere 15 days of digging, these fossil hunters unearthed around 3,000 specimens, showcasing at least 55 different species. What's even cooler, 12 of these species were brand spanking new to science. This treasure trove offered a snapshot of the Cambrian explosion, when life in the ocean got wildly diverse and most major animal groups first appeared on the scene. Among their finds was a real showstopper, Metasprigina, an early vertebrate that's shedding light on how jaws came to be. Near the front of its body, Metasprigina had pairs of arches, with the frontmost pair likely evolving into the chompers we see in animals today. This was the first time such features had been spotted this early in the fossil record. This discovery wasn't just about adding new critters to our prehistoric catalog. The site's preservation of soft-bodied organisms, which usually don't fossilize well, has given scientists an amazing view into the ecosystems of Earth's distant past. Its significance is on par with the original Burgess Shale, and some fossil aficionados think it might even eclipse its older cousin in importance someday. Now, speaking of epic journeys, let's rewind even further back to 1776. That year, 2 Franciscan priests, Father Francisco Atanasio Dominguez and Father Silvestre Vélez de Escalante, were feeling quite adventurous. They set off on a bold expedition to chart a path from Santa Fe, New Mexico, to Monterey, California. Dubbed the Dominguez Escalante Expedition, this trek was no walk in the park. It was a full-blown exploration that revealed the guts and glory of the American Southwest. Launching their journey on July 29, 1776, these fearless priests were joined by the intrepid cartographer Don Bernardo Miera y Pacheco, interpreter Andres Muñiz, and 2 Ute guides, Silvestre and a remarkably young Joaquin, just 12 years old. Imagine traversing the wild terrains of today's Colorado, where every rock and river could be a new discovery. They even named a spot Cañon Pintado, or Painted Canyon, inspired by its captivating pictographs near what is now Rangeley, Colorado. As they scribbled down details in their journals, Dominguez and Escalante weren't just mapping dirt paths. They were penning down the cultural encyclopedia of the Utes and Paiutes. From diets to social structures, their notes offered a peek into these indigenous people's lives, a priceless ethnographic treasure trove. Yet every story has its bumps, and this expedition was no exception. With winter nipping at their heels by October 1776, and their supplies looking rather sad, the group made the tough call to head back to Santa Fe. Facing harsh weather and rugged landscapes, they retraced their steps and finally staggered back on January 2nd, 1777. Though they didn't make it to California, they did cover a whopping 2,000 miles in 6 months, charting unknown territories and bringing back stories that would make even the most seasoned traveler's jaw drop. Now, speaking of landscapes, let's talk about something really old, the Nankoweap Formation in the Grand Canyon. Discovered in 1934 by the keen eyes of geologist C.E. Van Gundy, this geological gem started making sense out of the seemingly chaotic layers of the Grand Canyon. Nestled near Nankoweap Canyon, its name, a nod to southern Paiute, hints at darker times of conflict between the Paiute and Navajo tribes. Fast forward to 1951, and there's Van Gundy again, delving deeper into these mysterious rocks, setting the stage for others to follow. By 1961, another geology buff, J.H. Maxson, had picked up the trail, honing in on what makes this formation so special. However, the real game changer came in 1976, when Donald P. Elston and G.R. Scott decided this wasn't just any group, it was the Nankoweap Formation, a standout layer cake in the geological feast of the Grand Canyon. Speaking of cake, this formation isn't just one flavor. It's a mix of reddish-brown and tan sandstones, with a dash of siltstones and mud rocks. Sitting pretty above the basaltic lava flows of the Cardenas Basalt and tucked beneath the Galeros Formation, the Nankoweap Formation's got a story at every layer. It ranges from 370 to a whopping 820 feet thick, and splits into 2 distinct parts, each with its own backstory of ancient environments. Now, as we leave the ancient rocks behind, we find ourselves among the echoes of ancient civilizations in the American Southwest. In the late 19th century, explorers stumbled upon the cliffside dwellings of Mesa Verde, hidden gems perched in the high plateaus of Colorado. The discovery of these ancient marvels paints a vivid picture of a time when explorers, ranchers, and scholars were drawn to the unknown like moths to a flame. Enter the Wetherill family, ranchers from the Mancos Valley with an appetite for the unexplored. On a crisp day in December 1888, specifically the 18th, Richard Wetherill and his brother-in-law, Charlie Mason, fueled by tales from a Ute tribesman named Akowitz, decided to check out rumors of ancient structures hidden in the cliffs. What started as a routine exploration turned into a historic find when they stumbled upon the breathtaking expanse of Cliff Palace. Imagine unearthing a giant time capsule, untouched, just sitting there in plain sight, yet hidden for generations. Cliff Palace was a jackpot, not just a collection of rooms and relics, but a full-blown showcase of the ancestral Puebloans' architectural genius. This discovery wasn't just a footnote in a history book, but a headline screaming from the cliffs. The buzz about Cliff Palace spread far and wide, reaching the ears of Gustav Nordenskjöld in 1891. This wasn't any run-of-the-mill tourist. Gustav was the son of the famous explorer Adolf Erik Nordenskjöld, who came on a mission. Mesmerized by the site's significance, Gustav wasn't content to just take in the view. He rolled up his sleeves and got down to work, conducting systematic excavations with a precision that would make any historian proud. He documented every nook and cranny and took countless photographs, and his meticulous efforts culminated in the 1893 publication, The Cliff Dwellers of the Mesa Verde. This wasn't just a book, it was a passport that brought Mesa Verde to the global stage. Now, while the Wetherills and Nordenskjöld were busy putting Mesa Verde on the map, another kind of discovery was brewing in the lush valleys of the Mississippi Delta. But this wasn't about ancient ruins. No, this was about tapping into the heart of America's musical soul. As blues music began to echo through the air, a different kind of explorer emerged, one armed with a guitar and a voice that could cut through the thick, humid nights. What do you think about these baffling secrets hidden deep within the Grand Canyon? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this intriguing, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe for more captivating discoveries, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.